The heavy metal door of the airlock slammed shut, and the sound went through Keshara's entire body like a cold wave. She pressed her face against the small window of her broken-down shuttle and watched the massive space station get smaller and smaller. Draconith Prime Station had been her home for 32 years. Now it was just a tiny dot against the giant purple planet that spun slowly below. Her hands shook as she held the small bundle wrapped in thermal cloth close to her chest. Inside was Vectir, her baby boy. He was only 3 days old, and the leaders of her people had already decided he shouldn't exist. The words of the High Council still played over and over in her head like a bad recording. Unlawful conception. Unlawful birth. Unlawful existence. Each word had felt like a physical blow when they said it. She had broken the breeding laws of her species. The Draconith had strict rules about when children could be conceived. It had to happen during specific times of the year when the stars aligned in a certain way. Keshara had gotten pregnant during the wrong season, and for that single mistake they had taken everything from her. They stripped away her citizenship papers. They deleted her from all official records as if she had never existed. They took her uniform and her rank as a navigation officer, a job she had worked 15 years to earn. They took her apartment, her savings, her friends who were too scared to speak to her anymore. And then they put her and her newborn son on this dying shuttle and pushed them out into empty space like garbage. The control panel in front of her blinked with angry red lights. The oxygen scrubbers were failing. These were the machines that cleaned the air so she could breathe. According to the computer, she had maybe 6 hours of breathable air left. After that, she and Vectir would slowly suffocate. Keshara's clawed fingers moved across the communication panel, sending out a distress call to every ship within range. Her people had communication networks that reached across entire solar systems. Surely someone would hear her. Surely someone would help a mother and her baby. But her radio stayed silent. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Not a single response. She knew why. Her shuttle was broadcasting her status to everyone nearby. Outcast. Criminal. Unlawful spawn aboard. Other Draconith ships were actually programmed to ignore distress calls from outcasts. Helping her would be breaking the law. And the Draconith never broke their laws. Never. Their entire society was built on strict rules and absolute obedience. Law before mercy. Order before compassion. Logic before feeling. That was the Draconith way. Keshara looked down at little Vectir in her arms. His scales were still soft and see-through like wet paper. Baby Draconith didn't develop their hard protective scales until they were several weeks old. His tiny chest moved up and down quickly as he breathed. Already his breathing sounded difficult in the thinning air. His small golden eyes looked up at her with complete trust, not understanding that his own people wanted him dead simply because he was born at the wrong time of year. Hot tears ran down Keshara's face and dripped onto her son's blanket. Draconith rarely cried. Their people considered tears a weakness, a loss of control. But she couldn't stop them now. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Vectir, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm so sorry, my little star. I brought you into a universe that doesn't want you. I should have been stronger. I should have followed the rules. But I loved your father and I wanted you so much." Her fingers gently touched his tiny face. He made a small cooing sound and wrapped his miniature clawed hand around one of her fingers. The gesture was so innocent, so trusting, that it broke her heart all over again. The control panel beeped again, the sound harsh and urgent in the quiet cabin. She looked at the screen. Life support was dropping faster now. 4 hours remaining. The systems were degrading quicker than the computer had predicted. Keshara sent out another distress call. Then another. Her voice grew desperate as she spoke into the communicator. "This is Shuttle K774. Life support failing. I have an infant aboard. Please someone, anyone. We need help. My son is 3 days old. Please." The only answer was static. She pulled Vectir closer to her chest, feeling his small heartbeat against her own. Around them, the shuttle drifted silently through the black emptiness of space. Through the windows, she could see distant stars and the glow of the shipping lanes where dozens of ships passed by every hour. Ships that would ignore her distress call. Ships that would let a baby die because some politicians in fancy robes had decided he was born on the wrong day. The oxygen recycler made a grinding noise and one of the red lights turned completely dark. Another system failing. Keshara tried not to think about what would happen in a few hours. Would they fall asleep and simply not wake up? Would it hurt? Would Vectir be scared? She started humming an old lullaby her own mother had sung to her many years ago, before she had understood how cruel her society could be. Her voice was shaky but soft, filling the small cabin with a melody that spoke of safety and love, things that now felt very far away. As she hummed, she watched the stars through the window and wondered if anyone in the vast universe would prove her people wrong. If anyone out there valued life more than rules. If anyone would choose mercy over law. The console beeped its countdown. 3 hours and 47 minutes remaining. And the radio stayed silent. Tyler Brooks sat in the pilot's chair of his beat-up salvage ship, the Wandering Star, with his boots propped up on the control panel and a cold beer in his hand. It was his third one of the night, and he was seriously thinking about a fourth. The ship floated lazily through a quiet section of space where the big commercial vessels rarely came. It was boring work, but boring paid the bills. Then a light started flashing on his communication panel, accompanied by a soft beeping sound. Tyler groaned and sat up, setting his beer down in a cup holder he'd welded to the armrest himself. He wiped his eyes and squinted at the screen, trying to read the information through the smudged glass. He really needed to clean these monitors one of these days. The message was a distress call. That wasn't unusual. Tyler picked up distress signals maybe once or twice a week out here. Usually it was cargo haulers with engine trouble or tourist ships that had wandered off the main routes. But this one was different. "Let's see here," he muttered, scratching the stubble on his jaw. He hadn't shaved in about a week and was starting to look pretty rough. Draconith shuttle. Life support systems failing. Status is. He leaned closer to read the smaller text. Outcast? What the hell does that mean? He scrolled down through the information. Unlawful passenger aboard. Biological status, infant. There was a baby on that ship. Before Tyler could even finish reading, his maintenance robot started making loud warning sounds from the back of the cockpit. The robot was an old model that Tyler had fixed up himself after finding it in a junkyard. It was supposed to help with repairs, but mostly it just worried about everything. Tyler had named it Bolt because it was always reminding him to tighten bolts and check connections. Words appeared on Tyler's helmet visor, translated from Bolt's beeping. Warning. Recommend ignoring distress call. Draconith law strictly forbids assistance to outcasts. Helping could create diplomatic problems. Tyler snorted and started punching coordinates into his navigation system. Yeah, well, Draconith law can go straight to hell, he said, already turning his ship toward the source of the distress signal. There's a kid on that shuttle, Bolt. I'm not gonna let some baby die out here because a bunch of alien politicians say I'm not supposed to help. Inadvisable, Bolt's translation read on his visor. Potential diplomatic incident. Could result in fines or arrest. You know what my mama used to tell me, Bolt? Tyler said, pushing the throttle forward. The Wandering Star wasn't fast, but she was reliable. She said if you see somebody who needs help, you help them. Period. End of story. Don't matter if they're human, alien, robot, or whatever. You help people. That's what makes you human. Bolt beeped something that sounded skeptical. I don't care if they got scales, tentacles, or 3 damn heads, Tyler continued. There's a baby on that ship and the life support is dying. We're going. That's final. 20 minutes later, Tyler brought his ship alongside the Draconith shuttle. Up close he could see it was in bad shape. Scorch marks on the hull. One engine completely dark. The whole thing looked like it had been thrown together in a hurry and then abandoned. He extended his boarding tube, a long flexible tunnel that connected his airlock to theirs. There was a metallic clang as the magnetic seals locked into place. Tyler grabbed his toolbox from its spot by the door and picked up a portable oxygen tank. If their life support was as bad as his sensors said, they'd need air fast. He cycled through his own airlock and then through theirs, and the door hissed open. The creature inside made Tyler stop in his tracks for just a second. He'd seen Draconith before in pictures and on news broadcasts, but never in person. She was huge, at least 8 feet tall, with scales that shimmered in different colors under the emergency lighting. She had wings folded against her back and a long tail that curled around her feet. Her face was reptilian but expressive, with large golden eyes that looked at him with pure desperation. She was clutching something against her chest, wrapped in a blanket. I have no currency, she said immediately, her voice rough and tired. Her English was good but heavily accented. I cannot pay you. I have nothing of value. I was stripped of everything when they exiled me. But please, if you can do anything for my son. Whoa, hold on there, Tyler said, holding up his free hand in what he hoped was a calming gesture. I'm not here for money. Your oxygen scrubbers are failing. According to my ship's sensors, you've got maybe an hour of air left, probably less. I'm here to fix that. He glanced at the small bundle in her arms. That's your kid. The Draconith mother pulled the bundle back protectively, turning her body to shield it. They will execute him if they find him. He is unlawful. Born in the wrong season. The authorities will kill us both. Please, human, if you cannot save us, at least make his death painless and— Stop right there, Tyler interrupted firmly. He set down his toolbox with a thud. I'm not killing anyone. And nobody's dying today if I got anything to say about it. Now let me take a look at your environmental systems and see what kind of mess your people made of this shuttle. He moved to the control panel and started checking the readouts. The Draconith mother watched him with confusion and suspicion, like she couldn't quite believe he was actually helping. Tyler found the access panel for the oxygen scrubbers and popped it open. What he saw inside made him shake his head in disbelief. Oh, you gotta be kidding me, he muttered. Who the hell designs a life support system with no backup? No redundancy at all? You got one scrubber unit and when it fails, that's it? Everyone just dies. He looked back at the Draconith mother. Your people's engineers should be ashamed of themselves. This is the dumbest design I've ever seen. One critical failure point and the whole system goes down. We don't build ships like this. Too dangerous. Keshara just stared at him. You are actually helping me? Truly? Yeah, I'm here, aren't I? Tyler pulled out a universal adapter from his toolkit, something he'd invented himself that could connect human technology to most alien systems. Look, your kid's got a face. That means he's a person. And people deserve a chance at life. I don't give a single damn what your government says about when he was born or what season it is or any of that bureaucratic garbage. He started connecting his portable oxygen unit to their system. This'll get you breathing easier in about 2 minutes. Then I'm gonna jury-rig your scrubbers with some of my spare parts. It won't be pretty, but it'll work. That's what matters. Keshara felt something she hadn't felt since the council had condemned her. It was a warm feeling in her chest, fragile but real. It was hope. This strange human with his battered ship and his toolbox didn't care about Draconith law. He didn't care about breeding seasons or protocols or what was lawful. He just saw someone who needed help and he helped. Maybe, she thought, there was still kindness in the universe after all. The wandering star was absolutely nothing like the ships Keshara had known her entire life. Draconith vessels were clean, organized, and efficient. Every wire was hidden behind smooth panels. Every surface was polished metal or sterile white plastic. Everything had its place and everything worked according to precise specifications. The Draconith took pride in their engineering perfection. Tyler Brooks' salvage ship was the complete opposite. As he guided Keshara through the airlock and into the main cabin, she saw exposed wiring hanging from the ceiling like vines in a jungle. Panels were missing from the walls, showing the guts of the ship's systems underneath. There were parts that clearly came from different types of ships, all cobbled together in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. And was that duct tape holding a coolant pipe together? Sorry about the mess, Tyler said, moving some tools off a bench so she'd have somewhere to sit. I wasn't exactly expecting company today. Usually it's just me and Bolt rattling around in here. Keshara barely heard him. She was looking down at Vectir in her arms, and her hearts were breaking. The baby was making small whimpering sounds, struggling to breathe even with the temporary oxygen Tyler had given them. His tiny chest moved up and down too quickly, like he couldn't get enough air. His scales, which should have been bright and colorful, looked dull and gray. Tyler noticed immediately. His whole expression changed from casual to deeply concerned. Hey, is he all right? He doesn't sound good. He is premature, Keshara said, and her voice cracked with emotion. Born 3 months before full development. Draconith infants require carefully controlled incubation chambers for the first 6 months of life. Without proper equipment, the survival rate is less than 5%. She looked up at Tyler with desperate eyes. Without an incubator, he will not survive the week. Perhaps not even 2 more days. Tyler was quiet for a moment, his hand rubbing his chin as he thought. Then suddenly his eyes lit up and he snapped his fingers. Incubator. Right. We can do that. Medical bay, come on. He started walking quickly toward the back of the ship, and Keshara followed, confused. What medical bay? This ship barely looked like it could keep itself flying. But Tyler led her to a small room that was barely bigger than a closet. Inside was a collection of medical equipment that looked like it had been gathered from a dozen different sources. None of it matched. There was a scanner that looked Centaurian, a defibrillator that might have been human military surplus, and drawers full of supplies that were probably expired. Tyler started pulling open cabinets and rummaging through them like a man on a mission. Okay, let's think about this. Your species needs heat, right? Controlled temperature and humidity levels. Yes, but I have no way to. And baby Draconith, they need more oxygen than adults or less? More, significantly more, but as I have tried to explain, I have no payment, no resources, nothing to. Wait, hold up. What's your name anyway? Tyler interrupted, turning to face her. Keshara. Keshara. I'm Tyler. He looked her straight in the eyes. Now listen to me carefully because I'm only gonna say this once. I don't want your money. I don't want payment. I don't want anything from you. Where I come from, when someone needs help, you help them. That's it. That's how it works. You don't help people because you're gonna get paid. You help them because it's the right thing to do. Keshara just stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. This went against everything she understood about how the universe worked. Tyler pulled out what looked like a component from a ship's engine. Now, I'm thinking we take this thermal regulator from my backup generator and combine it with this medical scanner to monitor his vital signs. His hands were already working, connecting wires and checking connections. Bolt? Hey Bolt, get in here. I need the emergency biotent and that environmental controller we salvaged last month from that Terran transport. The maintenance robot rolled in, beeping frantically. Keshara's translator picked up the message. Environmental controller is not rated for medical use. This is dangerous. Not recommended. Bolt, buddy, everything we do on this ship is technically not recommended, Tyler said without looking up from his work. Just get me the parts. What happened over the next 6 hours was something Keshara would never forget. She watched as Tyler Brooks, a human salvage worker with no formal medical training whatsoever, built an incubation chamber from scratch using spare parts, salvaged equipment, and what appeared to be pure determination. He took a biotent meant for emergency field surgery and reinforced it with transparent polymer sheets. He connected the thermal regulator to create a controlled heating system. He rigged the environmental controller to maintain precise humidity levels. He wired in medical sensors to monitor Vectier's heart rate, breathing, and body temperature. Every few minutes he'd mutter to himself, "This should work. Yeah, this'll work. Just need to calibrate this and..." Tyler's shirt became soaked with sweat. Grease covered his hands and face. He burned his finger on a hot connection and just shook it off and kept working. When something didn't fit right, he made it fit. When a part didn't work the way he needed, he modified it until it did. Finally, after 6 hours of nonstop work, Tyler stepped back and wiped the grease from his forehead with his sleeve. Okay. It ain't pretty and no medical inspector would approve it, but it'll work. It'll keep him warm, keep the humidity right, and give him plenty of clean, oxygen-rich air to breathe. I've got all the sensors linked to my main console, so if anything changes with his vitals, alarms will go off and we'll know immediately. Keshara carefully placed Vectier inside the makeshift incubation chamber. The moment the seal closed and the systems activated, she saw the difference. Within just a few minutes, her son's breathing became easier, deeper, more regular. The color started returning to his tiny scales. His little eyes, which had been squeezed shut in discomfort, relaxed. He was going to survive. Tears filled Keshara's eyes. Draconith rarely cried. Their people considered tears a sign of weakness, a failure to control emotions. But she couldn't stop them now. They ran down her scaled cheeks and dripped onto the floor of Tyler's messy, chaotic, beautiful ship. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Among my people I am nothing now. An outcast. A criminal. My son is unlawful, meant to be terminated by government order. Yet you, a stranger from a species I have never even met before today?" She looked at Tyler through her tears. "Why would you do this? Why would you spend 6 hours of your life building medical equipment for an alien baby that your government doesn't care about? Why?" Tyler pulled up an old chair and sat down next to the incubation chamber, watching the tiny Draconith baby breathe peacefully inside. He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was softer than before. 5 days had passed peacefully aboard the wandering star. Vectier was getting stronger every day in his makeshift incubator. His scales were brightening, his breathing was steady, and he was even starting to make happy chirping sounds when Keshara came near. Tyler had taught her how to use the coffee maker, and they'd fallen into an easy routine of working together to keep the ship running. Then the alarm started screaming. The sound was deafening, echoing through every corridor of the ship. Red warning lights flashed on every wall. Tyler was in the middle of fixing a coolant leak when the noise hit, and he dropped his wrench in surprise. Bolt came rolling into the room at full speed, beeping frantically. The translation appeared on every screen in the ship simultaneously. Draconith warship approaching. Class 7 battle cruiser. Heavily armed. Demanding immediate communication. "Oh hell," Tyler swore, already running toward the cockpit. He nearly slipped on the metal floor in his rush. Kes, stay with Vectir. Don't come out no matter what happens. He threw himself into the pilot's chair and looked at the main viewport. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Draconith warship was massive. It was at least 10 times the size of his little salvage vessel, covered in armor plating that gleamed under the light of the nearby star. Weapon ports lined its hull like the eyes of a spider. This wasn't just a military ship. This was a ship designed to destroy other ships with overwhelming force. Tyler's communication screen flickered to life without him even pressing any buttons. They'd forced a connection. A face appeared on the screen, and Tyler had to stop himself from reacting. The Draconith commander was terrifying to look at. His scales were dark red, almost black. His eyes were cold and calculating. Everything about him screamed military authority and absolute certainty. "Human vessel," the commander said, his voice like gravel scraping on metal. "You are currently harboring a criminal fugitive and unlawful spawn. Under Draconith law, you are required to surrender them immediately for termination and legal processing." Tyler felt anger burning in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Yeah, that's gonna be a hard no from me, buddy." The commander's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You do not understand the situation, human. The female aboard your vessel violated sacred breeding protocols that have governed our society for 10,000 years. The offspring is unlawful by every definition of our law. It must be eliminated to preserve the order of our civilization." "Oh, I understand just fine," Tyler said, his jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "You want to kill a baby because he was born at the wrong time of year. And I'm telling you right now that ain't happening. Not while I'm breathing. You would defy Draconith law for an outcast? For a criminal? I would defy any law anywhere that says a kid should die just for existing." Tyler's hand moved to his communication panel, hovering over the emergency broadcast button. "And buddy, you really don't want to push this any further." The commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You pilot a salvage vessel held together with primitive adhesives. We are a Class 7 military battle cruiser with enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. You have no leverage here, human. You cannot possibly." Tyler hit the button. His emergency broadcast went out on every human frequency in the entire sector. It was loud, urgent, and impossible to ignore. "This is Tyler Brooks on the Wandering Star. I've got a mother and her baby aboard my ship. Draconith military wants to kill them both. The baby's only 8 days old. Any humans in the area? I could really use some help right about now." The Draconith commander's expression shifted to something like confusion. "That transmission will accomplish nothing. You are alone in this sector. Your nearest support is—" "Am I alone though?" Tyler interrupted, and he couldn't help but smile. The first ship appeared on his sensors about 30 seconds later. Then another. Then 3 more. They kept coming, dropping out of faster-than-light travel one after another like stars appearing at dusk. A massive cargo hauler called Big Betty materialized first, its hull scarred from decades of hard work. Then came a medical transport named Angel of Mercy, its white paint gleaming. A ugly mining ship called Stonebreaker appeared, covered in rock dust and clearly built for toughness over beauty. 2 sleek mercenary vessels showed up, bristling with weapons. A passenger liner that had obviously diverted from its route joined them. More ships kept arriving. 15 ships. 20. 25. 30. Every single one of them was human. Every single one had answered Tyler's call. Tyler's grin grew wider as he looked at the Draconith commander's shocked face. "See, here's the thing about humans that you really should have researched before coming here. When you threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. And when you threaten someone we've decided is worth protecting, well, that's when things get interesting. And killing babies?" He shook his head slowly. "Commander, that's a line you really shouldn't have crossed." The communication channels exploded with voices. Human voices, all of them angry and ready to fight. "This is Captain Dennis on Big Betty. Tyler brother, we got your back. Nobody's touching that kid. Angel of Mercy standing by. I didn't become a doctor to let children die. We're with you, Tyler. Stonebreaker here. My crew's got mining lasers that'll cut through that fancy warship like butter. Say the word, Tyler." Mercenary vessel Red Hawk reporting. "We're locked and loaded. These alien bureaucrats want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." The Draconith commander stared at the display showing all the human ships surrounding his warship. His perfectly orderly military situation had turned into chaos. The human vessels were mismatched, many of them clearly civilian, and most were poorly armed compared to his battle cruiser. But there were so many of them, and they were all clearly willing to die for a baby they'd never even seen. "This is madness," the commander said, his voice filled with genuine disbelief. "You would start a war over one unlawful offspring? One infant that violated our breeding protocols." A new voice cut across the communication channel. It was a woman's voice, firm and commanding, with the kind of authority that came from years of military service. "This is Captain Rachel Hayes on the Freedom's Light, formerly of the Earth Defense Force. Commander, let me explain something to you. On Earth, we have an old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. That means when you threaten a child, any child, you threaten every single person in that village. You threaten the whole community. And right now, every human in this sector just became one big village." There was steel in her voice. "Now you've got two choices. You can turn that warship around and leave, or you can try to fight 30 human ships who are very, very protective of children. Your choice, Commander. But choose quick." The standoff lasted for 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. Tyler's hands gripped the controls of his ship, ready to fight even though he knew his salvage vessel wouldn't last 10 seconds against that warship. But he'd go down fighting if he had to. That baby deserved to live. Finally, the Draconith commander spoke. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "This incident will be reported to the Draconith High Council. The outcast will never be safe in Draconith space. She is forever exiled. This is not over, human." "That's fine by me," Tyler replied. "Because she won't be in Draconith space. She's with us now. She's human crew. And we protect our own." The massive warship slowly turned, its engines flaring to life. It accelerated away, disappearing into faster-than-light travel within seconds. Tyler collapsed back in his pilot's chair, his heart hammering in his chest like a drum. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. He just faced down a military warship. That had actually happened. He heard a sound behind him and turned to see Keshara standing in the doorway to the cockpit. Tears were streaming down her scaled face and she was shaking. "You, all of you," she whispered, looking at the display showing all the human ships still surrounding them. "You risked your lives. Your ships. Potential war with my entire species. For us. For me and Vectir." Tyler stood up and walked over to her. "Yeah, well?" He smiled, still a little shaky from the adrenaline. "Welcome to humanity, Kes. We're a pack species. We take care of each other. And as of right now," he put a hand on her shoulder, "your pack. Your family. And we don't let family face danger alone." The communication channels were still active, and Tyler could hear the other human captains talking. "Tyler, you need anything, you call us. Anytime, anywhere. That baby's got 30 godparents now, brother. We're all watching out for him. Keshara, if you're listening, welcome to the human family. We're a little crazy, but we've got your back." For the first time since her exile, Keshara understood something profound. She'd lost her old family, her old society. But she'd gained something new. Something her rigid, orderly people could never understand. She'd gained a family that chose her. Not because of law or duty, but because of something much stronger. Well, 2 years had passed since that terrifying standoff with the Draconith warship. 2 years that had changed everything. Keshara stood at the large viewport window of what used to be Tyler's cramped salvage ship. Now it was the office headquarters of a small but successful repair and transport company called Brooks and Keshara Interstellar Services. The ship was docked at a space station orbiting a planet called New Terra, and the view outside was breathtaking. The station was called The Refuge by everyone who lived there, and it was unlike anything Keshara had ever seen in Draconith space. Back home, stations were all identical, built according to strict architectural guidelines approved by the Central Planning Committee. Everything was symmetrical, efficient, and coldly logical. The refuge was beautifully chaotic. Parts of it were built in human style with rounded corridors and warm lighting. Other sections showed Centaurian architecture with its organic curves and living plant walls. There was a district built by Tellurians with their crystalline structures that caught and refracted light in rainbow patterns. A dozen different species had contributed to building this place, and somehow, impossibly, it all worked together. Human engineers had figured out how to connect all these wildly different designs into one functioning station. Mama, look at this." Keshara turned from the window and smiled at the sight before her. Vectir, her son, was now 2.5 years old. He was a healthy, energetic toddler with bright emerald scales that shimmered when he moved. His wings had grown in properly, and he could even glide short distances now. He was playing on the floor of the office with Tyler's daughter, a human girl named Lily who'd come to live with them 6 months ago. Tyler's ex-wife had decided Earth wasn't the place for her anymore and had accepted a corporate job on a distant mining colony. She'd asked Tyler if he wanted to take Lily, and he'd said yes before she'd even finished the question. Now the little 7-year-old girl was as much a part of their strange, mixed-species family as anyone. "I taught Vec how to play tag," Lily announced proudly, her blonde ponytail bouncing as she ran in circles around the young Draconith. "He's really fast. You can't catch me." Vectir chirped in perfect English, his translator implant allowing him to speak as naturally as any human child. He spread his small wings and jumped over a chair, gliding to the other side of the room. "I can fly. That's cheating." Lily laughed, chasing after him. The door slid open and Tyler walked in carrying several containers of food. The smell hit Keshara immediately, spicy and warm. "Dinner's here, everyone. Got real authentic Earth tacos from that new food vendor on level 12. Kes, I'm telling you, you're gonna love these." Keshara gave him a skeptical look. "You said the exact same thing about that pizza food last month." My mouth was on fire for an hour. "Okay, yeah, I maybe should have warned you about the jalapenos," Tyler admitted, setting the food containers on the table. "But I promised these are mild. I specifically asked for no hot peppers." "Your promises about food are becoming less trustworthy," Keshara said, but she was smiling. Over 2 years, she'd learned that teasing was how humans showed affection to people they cared about. She took one of the tacos and carefully bit into it. The flavors were strange but not unpleasant. Humans used so many spices in their cooking, something Draconith cuisine never did. "It is acceptable," she said, which made Tyler laugh because he knew that was her way of saying she actually liked it. While they ate, Tyler pulled out his data pad and scrolled through some information. "Hey, we got a new arrival at the station today. Another Draconith female. Pregnant, conceived during the wrong season. Her ship sent out a distress call, and one of the human patrol vessels picked her up before her own people could find her." Keshara's expression immediately became serious and compassionate. She knew exactly what that woman was going through. The fear, the shame, the certainty that she was going to die. "I will speak with her tomorrow. Let her know that she is safe here. That her child will be welcomed." "I figured you'd want to," Tyler said with a smile. "You've helped 17 Draconith refugees now. You're basically running an underground railroad for your own species." Over the past 2 years, the refuge had become home to hundreds of outcasts and refugees from dozens of different worlds. There were Draconith who'd violated breeding protocols. There were Voltorians who'd questioned their government's wars. There were families fleeing religious persecution, scientists whose research had been banned, artists whose work had been censored. People from rigid, authoritarian societies who'd made the mistake of being different. And the humans who ran the refuge asked them no questions. They just opened the doors and said, "Welcome. You're safe now." Tyler leaned back in his chair, watching Lily and Vectir playing together. "You know, when I picked up your distress signal 2 years ago, I never in a million years thought I'd end up running a refugee station with a dragon alien as my business partner. Life's weird, isn't it?" "Weird," Keshara repeated, testing the word. She'd learned so much human slang over the years. "Yes, life is weird." She placed one of her clawed hands gently on Tyler's shoulder. "But I have learned something important. I learned that family is not about biology or perfect timing or following protocols." She looked at Vectir and Lily playing together, 2 children from completely different species who loved each other like siblings. "You humans are chaotic. You are illogical. Your ships are held together by adhesive tape and, as you say, hope and prayers. Your stations are architectural nightmares that should not work but somehow do." "Hey, I feel like you're insulting my engineering here," Tyler protested, but he was grinning. "And yet," Keshara continued, "you are the most compassionate species I have ever encountered. You save people not because it is efficient or profitable or logical. You save them simply because it is the right thing to do." Her voice grew softer. "My people taught me that law comes before mercy, that order comes before compassion. You taught me that mercy is the highest law. That compassion is the most logical choice." Tyler's eyes got a little watery and he blinked rapidly. "Oh man, stop it. You're gonna make me cry, and I got a reputation to maintain here." That evening, Keshara went to the refugee processing center to meet the new Draconith arrival. The woman was young, scared, and holding her pregnant belly protectively. When she saw Keshara, her eyes went wide with recognition. You're the outcast from the Valandris incident," the woman whispered. "The one who was saved by humans. I heard the story but I thought it was just a legend." "It is not a legend," Keshara said gently. It is very real. And you are safe now. Your child will be born here, welcomed here, loved here. Vectir peeked around his mother's leg, his bright scales gleaming. I'm Vectir. Mama says you're gonna have a baby. I can teach them how to play tag when they're born. The refugee woman stared at the healthy, happy Draconith toddler, and tears began streaming down her face. He's alive. He's thriving. I thought they were all terminated. Not anymore, Keshara said firmly. Not here. Later, as Keshara walked back through the common areas of the refuge with Vectir's small hand in hers, she noticed a sign hanging on the wall. It was written in a dozen different languages. In English it read, "The Refuge, where everyone belongs." Someone had added something below it in marker, "Humanity, adopting the galaxy one outcast at a time." Keshara smiled. It was absolutely true. She'd learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology or their ships. It was their stubborn, illogical, beautiful refusal to accept that anyone should be thrown away. Their insistence that every person, every child, every life had value, regardless of what laws they'd broken or what season they'd been born in or what species they belonged to. The galaxy was changing because of humans. Slowly, one rescued refugee at a time, one open door at a time, one act of compassion at a time. And Keshara was proud to be part of it. She looked down at Vectir, who was humming happily as they walked. 2 years ago, her people had condemned him to death. Now he was a thriving, joyful child with a future full of possibilities. All because one human had heard a distress call and decided that a life was worth saving. That, Keshara thought, was the true power of humanity. Not their weapons. Not their technology. Their hearts.